Welcome back to Turning the Key to Real Estate. I'm your host, Nicholas Feagley.
And Heather Petrone-Shook.
Well, everybody, we are back for another amazing episode, and I am super excited about this guest today. So, Heather, how are you out there in Philly?
I'm living the dream because we got one of my own here today.
You do, you
So
do.
You can hear a lot of water. You can hear a lot of water.
Jesus. Okay, I keep trying to teach her that it's pronounced water, but fine. So everybody,
I'll be happy to settle that dispute as soon in a couple minutes.
So everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Al Perry. How are you today, Al?
Doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me here. Appreciate being with you and Heather.
This is exciting. So Al, when I first met you, it was at PAR meetings that I met you. It was 2 years ago. I was that starry-eyed kid first into the industry. I know, right? Seems like it's not been that long, or it feels like it's been longer than what it is, but it really isn't. So now, Al, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, no, thanks. Yeah, no, appreciate the question. And so I'm a second generation. I mean, I'll tell you the real estate side. Second generation realtor. I grew up in a real estate family. My mother, Marie Perry, was a longtime realtor. She passed away in 2020, but we worked together for many years. And I started in business in '96. My mother used to own a small independent firm in South Philadelphia, and but I grew up in the varying real estate offices that my mother worked in. She was a single parent. My father passed away when I was young, and I have a little brother. So when my father passed away, he was a newborn, and I was a 6-year-old. So my mother would whisk me up and take me on a real estate appointment. My grandmother would watch my brother. I guess the rule in the house was my grandmother could handle one, but not two. So I was the more mobile of the two. She could tell me to go sit down and entertain myself for a while she was showing a house or having an appointment or on floor time at the office. So I was the kid in the real estate office doing the homework at the desk. One of the reasons I know Heather and I have joked about this, Heather growing up in a real estate family as well, being that kid, answering the phones in the office, doing more than you probably should have. But I say my real estate license, while I might not have had a paper copy of a license at the time, I was probably conducting a little more real estate than I should beforehand. But it was cool.
Probably run around for those carbon copy contracts. Were you?
Oh yeah, I was. Yeah, I was around for those. My first agreement sale and listing contracts were typed at the office, and where you get the big typer. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure a couple of them typewriters are still down in our basement, sitting around, because we don't get rid of anything. We just archive it. So one of those days, those typewriters will be useful. So but I grew up in that real estate office in 2001. That '96 I got licensed and worked with my mother for a number of years. 2001, we joined with some other folks in the industry that we knew, a number of other real estate brokers in the Philadelphia marketplace, and we formed our current company. As our CEO Bill Lublin, formed Advantage Gold, and we joined on with that group. Essentially, I've always worked with the same firm because we just kind of merged in and been working there. But I've been an owner since 1996. I bought out the partners in my office here, and now I'm a managing partner here in our South Philadelphia location, and have been involved in the association for years. Past president of the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors. Geez, even before that, past president of the old South Philadelphia Realty Board. 2 years of that, 2 years of Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors, and now last year is Pennsylvania Association of Realtors president. So, but very active in association land, and but really married my wife Christine, got three great kids at home. One of which is an aspiring 14-year-old realtor, who's probably more popular in the realtor community than I am. So he likes to roll to realtor functions, Julian. So yeah, it's good. It's and I'm over here in South Philly right now.
I think what I like most about your story is the fact that you're not just real estate, but you're truly involved in the association as well. Like that stint there too was quite substantial that I didn't know about you. So that was interesting.
I never really thought about getting involved at like the state level. Heck,
Mhm.
I didn't think about getting involved much at the city level. For me, it was all granular, and I was doing some business. I was doing some business in South Philadelphia. That's where my office was located. There was the South Philadelphia Realty Board. There was a Paul Borriello from Century 21 Forester. I was doing a co-op deal with Paul, and he said, we really need to get you involved with the South Philly Realty Board. We network together, we meet for lunch, share ideas, thoughts, things that we can work on and collaborate on, do some social stuff together, and work in conjunction with Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors when appropriate. And so that's how I got involved, and just started moving up there. And it was all like inchworm along the way. Never really aspired to kind of ascend, but when you're a worker bee, and you really enjoy that worker bee side, and people say, hey, I think you'd be good here, or hey, why don't you try this? And next thing you know, you're kind of moving up the channels because people can rely on you. And people know you're going to put a strong effort in, and people know you collaborate well. Not everybody collaborates as well, or plays nice in the sandbox as well. So that's all. Those are things that came natural to me. I always loved that part of this business, was the cooperation, which is ironic that comes this time of year we're talking about that in 2024 here. But
Yeah.
cooperation to me, our industry is such a unique one. Heather and I, our brokerages aren't far from each other, so it's reasonable to think that tomorrow we might be competing for a piece of business. And I have respect for her and believe she has respect for me. But next week we can also be collaborating and cooperating on a piece of business. She represents one party, I represent the other party. Our brokerages represent, we work night. You obviously have the interest of your client you're working to uphold. But there's also this cooperative spirit that sometimes can really help navigate what can be challenging transactions at times, because there's always people behind those transactions. There's emotions behind those transactions, and it's that people first. Our clients are people, and I think folks that can appreciate that really do well in this business, and a lot of them get involved in association work, I find. And so I've met so many peers that I've known and respect. That's how I met Heather. Knowing and respect, just working through our local association of realtors, and friendships emerge from there, and we still cooperate. We cooperate and we compete.
And we collaborate.
And we collaborate
on stuff for the association for people. I mean, Al and I have gone to the mat. We don't agree on everything when we're in association business, or even just in general in politics in Philadelphia too. But it doesn't mean that, we wouldn't work for the greater good, which is good. And of course, if you haven't figured out, we bonded over the fact that we're both kids in the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Writers.
Yeah, luckily the real estate commission wasn't sniffing around those offices. I think we both our sets of parents probably would have
child labor law.
Yeah. That's the truth. And it's
So
pretty funny.
Look at this, and you had somebody brand new in the industry that, they've been working maybe, let's say, a year or two. What would you say is one of the biggest reasons that they should go to some association events, get involved, and understand what it truly means to be a realtor?
That's a good question. My answer might not be the popular one. I think a lot of times we say, oh, go to the association. I think sometimes people want to run before they crawl, and I found, for me, I just want it to be a sponge. When I go back and I look at the beginning of my career, I think the thing that I respected, even growing up in a real estate family and maybe having more exposure to real estate than maybe most brand new agents coming into the business would have had, I think I had an appreciation for the fact that I didn't know anything, and I think that's can be a lost art these days, maybe at times. I think a lot of people have an oversimplified approach to what it is that real estate agents do. Like their concept. We see it with clients sometimes, customers. Oh, he comes, he hangs a real estate sign, and he makes that big check, or whatever the case might be. Or they show some houses and get to live the glamorous life. And that's really not the path of most real estate agents that I know.
Right.
There's a much more granular component to it. There's so many nuances that we can learn in this business to grow our value to our client base, the people that we serve. So I think I appreciated that at a really early stage. And I found that when I just went into a room and absorbed, I didn't even go in the room to lead. I didn't go in the room to tell everybody what they should be doing or try to change the world, even though sometimes association work can get a little frustrating because it doesn't always move at light speed, because it is so collaborative, right? If a lot of our industry is we're doers, do. Like the people that are good in this business are often like, show me what I got to do. I'll go do it. Let's get it done. Let's talk about, we'll evaluate at the end of the, And sometimes association work doesn't work that rapidly, and most times it does, because it's more collaborative. We got to get cumulative buy-in, and we got to weigh all the variables that maybe don't have to get weighed in any one instance, with one person. So I just wanted to be around people who found a way to succeed in this business, and association work provided that avenue. And I don't think it's coincidental that my most valued relationships in this business, and even my partnerships now, my partners that I'm with in my current business relationship here, are people that I met in the association world. That's where we became acquainted, and that's where we built a respect for each other. And then there was the cooperative side, the collaborative side. And then it was, hey, here's some opportunity. Maybe we should think about doing this together. Maybe you should get a seat at this table too. And it's just funny when you approach things from that servant type of mentality, and what can I learn in this room that I'm in? There's so much that people, and even people with different perspectives, as Heather so eloquently said, we don't always agree on stuff. Whether it be, different association things. We're both very active with, standard forms, very opinionated on standard forms that we use. And it's funny, you get on the standard forms meeting with passionate, and when you see all this, like, I think we should go here, I think we should go here, go this way, and somewhere we got to end. It's got to all come together in a way that and that's what I love about the business. It's this little bit of rub and friction in a good way, and then what ends up coming out is beneficial to the whole, and I love that about the business.
So, obviously with you being a generational realtor and with Julian, going to be following in Dad's steps.
No. Allow me to correct you. Julian will create his own steps and I will follow.
But into the career of the same. What would you say, you're probably the third or fourth person that we've had on that, their children are now following in the steps and going to eventually take what you've built and run with it. What would you say is one of the biggest aha moments to you with that whole process?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the more frustrating, I'd be interested in Heather's opinion on this and see if it's some of the same. We'll just, I joke around about Julian. He's 14. He's starting his freshman year of high school. So he may decide that we don't put any pressure on him to work in real estate. I have an older daughter who's a senior in high school, and she was very intrigued around real estate at some point too, and she seems to have kind of grown past that in her own. Maybe she'll double back around. I don't know, but we, as a family, we don't put any pressure. We want our kids to find their own way wherever that is. It seems to me with Julian that he really loves to kind of, even without being pushed in any particular direction, finds himself. He's actually doing some hustle work this summer down here at the real estate office that's has him in the office because he wants to, and he's earning a buck too. So, but one of the frustrating things growing up as a second generation realtor is that so many people, whenever I had any success, that success was lumped into, well, you're lucky because you're Marie's son. And I'd never really wanted to say I was unlucky because I was Marie's son by any means, because my mother certainly mentored and would have given me the shirt off her back to help me, get to where I was going, for sure. But man, she was extremely demanding, and we took different paths in real estate. What was good about my mother is her way of doing things. There were certain things about it that I liked, and certain things that I mimicked, and then there were certain things that used to drive me crazy. And all of it was ethical. I mean, it wasn't like the way she was going about her business. I mean, she always put her client first. That's the stuff I love. But she was also one of these people that would ride this emotional roller coaster ride of real estate transactions. She was somebody that, um, put so much appreciation and love and support into her clients that she wouldn't always prospect, because you prospect. She was a great prospector when she set her mind to it, but she'd bring clients in and then she'd give them her life, and she had this hard work-life balance thing going on, which I always said I was gonna try to do better. And then she also had this, she would give so much of herself. Some of the same clientele didn't appreciate her, and she didn't command that appreciation sometimes. So she could be a doormat at times to some of her clients. I mean, some of the clients appreciated the heck out of her. And we used to talk about that. It used to drive me crazy because I'd see her run like crazy for someone who didn't appreciate her. And man, that would, so it's like someone would come up to me and say, I'd be working my tail off to get ahead. And yeah, certainly my mother did whatever she could do to create opportunity for me. And I always be appreciative of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I always felt like I had to go even harder because people assumed that whatever I had and whatever success I had was the immediate result of being the son of a broker. Oh, he's got the Glengarry leads that must be coming to him because of, or any fans of Glengarry, Glen Ross know the reference. But he's got somehow the special leads. Well, I mean, my mother might have peeled off a lead or something to me over the years, but man, she always made me hunt and gather. Like I had to go out and fight for myself to get ahead, and she would support me in that path. But I always kind of felt like I was swimming upstream. I had a chip on my shoulder for sure about it, and I kept forging forward. But it would drive me crazy when people would always lump that success, and maybe it was just a little bit in my head. Um, and then at some point, my mother became my biggest fan in the business.
Yep.
As she kind of saw there be wind in my sail, and so she was certainly supportive. But I know if Julian or Lucia or Evangeline decide to get into real estate, whatever success they have, I'll certainly do my best to prepare them for the challenges, just like I will in any career they'll do. But they're going to blaze their own way, and they're going to have whatever success they have because of the hard work and drive that they put in it. In fact, I think in some ways, when you're the son or daughter of a broker, you almost have a bigger obstacle to overcome, and that's kind of feeling your own way when you live in a shadow of someone who may have had whatever success they've had and reputation that they've been able to be, good reputation that they've been able to build. I mean, I certainly appreciated that. And when I'd walk into a room and people would say, "Oh, I love your mother. She's great. She's a great realtor." That always made me feel good. I never wanted to diminish that from her,
Mm-hmm.
but I always also wanted to kind of have my own spirit of my work ethic, my finished product. And I think my mother started to recognize that as I go. That's why she became a big fan, of my real estate work, not just of her son, but of my real. And for quite a number of years, she was my broker. before I became, that was the other shift in dynamic is, I bought her and a couple partners out. So I became her managing partner at a point in our career where it's almost like a 360 at that point where, 180, probably a better way to say it, where it just switched around. But she was my toughest agent because we were sometimes like, and she was great at what she did but we went about it different ways because I think I was just always so hyper focused on what I didn't want to do that she did. And again, not because it made her a bad realtor, but because I didn't want people to walk all over me at times. I didn't want, I certainly want to be generous in the spirit of my business and what I did for my clients, but I wanted them to understand and appreciate that. And I found that wasn't always the case with my mother. So it really helped me because I got to see, all the, and it's just like this with any mentor, right? Fathers, mothers, friends, they're mentors of you. Like, I want to be the great parent that they were. But here's the things I thought they did really well. And by the way, here's the things that maybe I wish they would have done a little differently or what I learned about how they did it. So I was always very conscientious of that kind of stuff and how I could improve from both the good example that I saw and the example that maybe I said, that's not how I would want to do this.
Yeah.
And still do it respectfully. It doesn't make her bad at what she did. She just had her way. And her way wasn't my way in certain things.
And you have to blaze your own trail too, because you are two different personalities.
Yeah.
Even though you're cut from the same cloth, like you said, you do things differently, and so would anybody else. And you just have to try and find that common ground. The other thing is when you're talking about that shift, the shift between this is my mother who I respect and love, but now we're in business and I'm competing with her.
Yeah.
So I definitely 110%. And I still work with my brother. And a lot of people, I'm along the lines of like, I am probably harder on him than I am on any other agent who brings me an offer. If he brings me an offer and there's holes in it like a piece of Swiss cheese, I'm probably giving it back to him tenfold.
Yeah. That's definitely the way my mother operated. Yeah. She would collaborate more. Like, she'd make me earn everything that I did. And I appreciate that. Because I think it really instilled some of the work ethic that I have in the business. I don't ever remember there being a time where I got to give me, and I'm probably not being fair. I'm sure she peeled off a lead she couldn't handle or maybe just wanted to put some wind in my sail.
I'm
Here's
sure
something.
she did.
And she might have, right. She might have said, so I'm sure those people exist. But yeah, she tried to put the wind in my sail, but she, getting off and running, once I was off and running, I think she, we would have friction, just like Heather and I talked about at the beginning of the call. Like, we don't agree on everything, Heather and I, but I respect the hell out of the advocate that she is for her clients. I've seen that at work. I respect the real estate broker that she is in the industry, the brand that she works for. I respect, how they approach their business. I respect a lot of facets, but we don't agree on everything.
Correct.
So if we work together, same thing with my mother. We worked together, we didn't agree on everything, and so you had this like, how do I do that? How do I blaze my own? I think if I'm fortunate in the sense that my kids or any of my kids want to get into this line of work and want to do so with me, in some collaboration, I'm going to let them blaze their path, and I'm going to let them figure their own way out quite a bit.
Yeah. So if you had somebody who came to your brokerage today and said, I'm thinking about getting into the industry, what is the good, bad, and the ugly? What is one thing that you would say is good? What is one thing that you'd say is bad? And what's one thing that you'd say is the ugly part of this industry?
Well, I'll start with the bad. The bad is the oversimplification of what it is a real estate agent does.
Okay.
And I, it's funny because I do recruit. So I do interview agents, incoming, either experienced agents or agents that are thinking about getting into the business, or people who are aspirational about going to the real estate classes and going. And I've probably done more talking people out of real estate over the years than I have talking people in, because I think there's this perception that what we do is easy. And I'm very eager to really give people the true version of what it is we do on an appointment. And sometimes that's more than someone's prepared to handle. And I'd rather speed up that expectation, or I call it speed up the failure process. But if they're not if they don't have the fortitude to deal with the bad side, which is, there's lots of different compensation ways for a real estate agent. So not one way is a one fit all, but many of the people who work in this industry are 1099. So they're independent contractors. And they're essentially their own business. And I think there's this perception that, hey, I go work in my case, I go work at Century 21. They almost have this kind of employer vision of, because that's what their experience has been wherever they've worked in the past. And really, I'm there to say, look, Century 21 and Century 21 Advantage Gold and any other brokerage that you may partner with and work with, they're certainly going to do what they can do and have their platforms to help you succeed. But understand, you're getting into this business. You're basically starting You Incorporated here, and you're partnering with our firm and with myself as a mentor in that firm. But you got to understand that there's an entrepreneurial side to this business, and then there's the real estate side to this business, and then there's the sales side to this business. And, if you can figure out how to become, competent at each of those, you'll have success in this business. But there are some terrific salespeople that are terrible entrepreneurs and terrible at real estate that don't have much success. People who are great at real estate, but can never put enough sales business together, and have, little entrepreneur skills. So it's almost like you got to have this whole thing. And then it's the economics of real estate. People's perception sometimes of the commission dollar that might come in is Al earned this, or Nick or Heather earned this, because they see the number that might be on the piece of paper that went to the firm, and they don't always understand or see what's on the paper that went to the listing contract or to the buyer agency contract, not realizing the different economic impacts that you have as an independent contractor, with whatever relationship you have with your broker or with any referral sources, what it is to be, taxed on those things, so, and the expenses that you might have associated with being You Incorporated, even though your brokerage might take on, some of the expenses of advertising or things of that nature. So that's the bad part. And I don't really, and I guess in a way it's a good part too, because once I get through that and you're still there, and you say, yeah, I'm still listening. I'm still, and then it's like, okay, Nick's my guy. Like, this is somebody we can actually have a talk with. And if you're not prepared for that, I'm happy to shake your hand and wish you well. And maybe there's another brokerage that's a better fit, that has a different way of taking a look at those things. But it's probably not right for us. And so, that's the part for me that I really tried to kind of fast track if I can. And I don't want to overpromise, like that's what happens with recruiters sometimes. Oh, unlimited earning potential, flexible schedule. Bullshit. No, sorry. Right. It's
not realistic. Probably not realistic.
It is
scrounging for food.
They're true, but it's not easy and easy. It's you're going to have to put the work in. If you're going to get to that level, you're probably, I don't know anyone who's gotten to that level that didn't work their tail off to get there, is what, so yeah. And there are people that I know who have unlimited earning potential and flexible schedules as a result of their real estate. But when I'm getting into the business and I'm getting ready to start tomorrow, I don't want that to be my driving mentality, because I think that is, people perceive this business sometimes as an order taking business. If it was an order taking business, it wouldn't be a sales job. You'd get paid some hourly rate. you take the orders. That's what it would be, or the orders would be automated. And you wouldn't get an hourly rate. There wouldn't be a job. It would be an automated process. So, but it's a sales job. There's a work component. So, the good part is really, I can't think of any better way for someone with an entrepreneurial mindset. There's so many things that real estate, like for me, I wasn't attracted to real estate. I grew up in real estate. In fact, I said I would never work in real estate because I watched my mother ride that real estate roller coaster ride that some real estate agents do with their income. And I said, no, I'm only going to work in something where someone pays me I get W-2. I would have known on Friday I got that paycheck going into my bank account. And like that was kind of my mindset because I got to see the kind of the rougher side of the real estate side, which is feast or famine sometimes for some agents who can't create that discipline across the board, or hit some challenges along the way. But in real estate, there's so many things. There's property management, there's real estate investment, there's sales, there's rentals. If I need income quickly, I can go find a rental opportunity, a client that needs a rental, that I can probably turn that into income for my brokerage and for myself on a more reason. And a lot of people don't, are casting those leads aside. I can get into the sales side. I can work buyer agency, seller agency. I can develop my strengths on both sides of those fences. I can do, I can do leasing, property management. I can get into commercial. I can get into brokerage. I can get into management. I can get into real estate investing. These are all things that really attracted me. I didn't want to be at least siloed at the time. I didn't think I would like the sales side as much as I ended up doing the real estate agent side. So when I got in, I kind of had this vision. I don't want to be a sales agent all my life. And but it was the brokerage and it was the entrepreneurial side and the real estate investing side that was really kind of that bigger picture piece to me, that I said, well, let me go get my boots on the ground experience so I could develop these other avenues. And then I really liked real estate sales. I really liked sitting at the dining room table and, figuring out a path to success for a seller, that kind of thing. And so that's the good part. I guess the ugly part is, sometimes we get categorized by our lowest denominator, and in every industry,
the used car,
you got good actors, you got bad actors, and and that's the reality of it is it's true. Like sometimes we say, oh, we're not a used car salesman. No, there are people in this industry that approach their business in a way a terrible used car, because there's probably wonderfully ethical and good productive used car salesmen in the world too. But like when you think of that kind of sleazy used car salesman mentality, there's people that work in this industry that approach this industry in that way. So I've kind of looked at that as an opportunity for myself and for my brokerage, is when a customer has a low opinion of the industry, which isn't hard to find, because it's not, I always say lead with empathy, because there's a really, there's a chance, a reasonable chance that they had a bad experience with someone in this industry. I mean, I know many people that work in this industry that, people would be very fortunate to have in their corner in a real estate transaction, or at least, management, or, there's great people in this industry. But I also know that there's bad advice in this industry, that there's people, some people think we have low barriers to entry, most states, and Pennsylvania being, we have low barriers to entry into the real estate industry to get licensed. And so some people think that piece of paper, now they're experts. And really that piece of paper kind of qualifies them to be an apprentice, in my opinion. And now's the time I got to learn from someone, and a brokerage and a mentor or mentors, to really help develop me so that I can become competent enough to be a real estate agent, or I may choose to abide by a code of ethics and become a realtor, because not all real estate agents are realtors, but all realtors are real estate agents. So like there's that component to it. But I think the ugly part is realizing that what people's poor perception of our industry can be, sometimes is true, unfortunately. And it's because of practitioners out in the business, and certainly not the man, certainly not the people who I network with. These are people of high caliber. These are people I would hire if I wasn't in the business.
Yep.
And people who I have hired because they're in different marketplaces, and I know what I know, but I also know what I don't know, and other people are experts at things I don't know. So that's the part that was a little difficult for me, because I think I was always so defensive of the real estate industry. Oh no, not us. Oh no, not us. We're better than that. And then it was like I came across bad actors. I came across the bottom tier of our industry, and I'm not talking about the unproductive tier, because most of the unproductive people in our industry are still good people. They would still help you if they were productive. Just can't find a way to get productive part. But there is that portion of the business that gives the business a bad name for good reason sometimes. So that's my job, to provide a better experience and help atone for the sins of that person who may have come before me. Like, I always saw that as a challenge. Hey, here's why, and you're not going to get that by promising. You're going to get that by showing, because the promises are, abundant out there. But the actions is where you're going to get the difference. But you got to get them comfortable with you, to give you a little window to show them, because some people have their guard up for good reason, and so when I see this, I get excited about it, but it was also a little bit of a painful pill to swallow, because I did have such an aspirational vision of what real estate is and what we do for our clients. Because I do know that there's many of us who do that for our clients, but then it was kind of like, wow, this other side does exist too. These other people with these other opinions aren't wrong. We just need to help them show that this is not indicative of the entire industry.
Yeah.
Right.
So what would you say is one statement you would make as a broker to an agent, something that we may not realize a brokerage has to do and we take advantage of? Let's add that caveat. We just expect that it gets done. We don't know the manpower or time it takes to do this item. What would you say it is?
Well, and I guess it depends on the brokerage too, because you have a lot of different brokerage models that are out there, and I encourage that. I like that. I like that we have competitors that come to things with their agent population in different ways, and I do believe that most of those brokers do so, with the hope and plan to do right by the client and by the agent. So I'll throw that in there. But I think the piece for us in our model, is I think sometimes people perceive the broker, the value they bring to the equation is our ability to potentially handle a problem when it comes up. So I'll use you for example. If we were in the same office, Nick, and I was your managing broker, and you had a transactional issue, which comes up in transactions. Not all transactions are destined to have success. Some of them are supposed to fail. They're not all supposed to go to settlement, because, you have to bring parties together. But I know, as an experienced real estate tactician that I've become over the years, and now wear my broker manager hat, a lot of the agents will think that the value that I might bring is in my ability maybe to save a deal, or maybe my ability to help someone solve a problem in their deal. Maybe it's not saving it, but it's like, hey, here's a way to approach that. And it's certainly something I take a lot of value in, and I appreciate that, good brokers can sometimes shed that light on different ways to kind of solve a problem in a transaction, or come up with alternative solutions that might make sense for a client that might not have otherwise been thought of. But I really see that as a small part of my responsibility. My biggest part is, you look at brokers, recruit, train, motivate, and upgrade, and develop in there. that agent pool, I think where I spend most of my time is on the planning and development side of the real estate agent, and the resources that we'll put in. It's not the, hey, let's go fix Nick's issue so that you can become dependent on me to solve your problems. What I really want to do is help you become the best you. I want to learn from you because each of my agents brings a unique perspective to the equation that maybe I don't even know or appreciate, because we're all different. We all have different life experiences. Sometimes when an agent asks me for advice on a situation, I'll say, well, what are you thinking is the best thing to do? I'll start with that, because a lot of times they'll come up and I'm like, wow, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
But no, that it's a great idea. So, but I want to, I spend the most time trying to really develop my agent population so that they can be the best versions of themselves. And for me, the thing I get most return when an agent exceeds my success in this business as a real estate agent. I had success as a real estate agent, but if a real estate agent, and I have them who work with me, when they get to a point in their career where they've achieved more than me, that's like the ultimate wind in my sail as a broker, because what I spend most of my time on is really trying to help them be the best that they can be. And I don't know that, I do it, I try to, and because of that, we've had good retention over the years. So, in an industry where you can see migration path, happen, we've had good retention.
Yep.
And so, but that's where I'm spending my day. Is I want to know, how do I make my agent, with their strengths, with their, with what they bring to the table, and maybe help them understand their weaknesses and bring their weaknesses up to a competent level, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses, bring that, weakness to a core competency, and that's really where I'm spending it. It's not on the, hey, 123 Main Street, we fixed that problem, which I think sometimes we get more credit than we should for as brokers and managers, but we don't get enough credit on, when an agent has success, a lot of times, oh, that agent had great success because that agent was that agent, and I'm happy with that. I don't need them to credit me for their success, nor do I think I'm the credit for their success, but I know I want to be as much of an asset in that success as I can be. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to deliver there.
Yeah.
Any good books that you would recommend for agents?
So I read a lot of self-help books. I mean, the books that I like, self-help books in general. And I like some stuff that are outside of sales. But if I try to think of stuff that's inside of sales, I love books
Doesn't have to be inside sales, because I often like, when I go see speakers, I often like to hear speakers that don't have anything to do with real estate.
Yeah.
Sometimes they motivate me more.
No, for sure. And I'm a big fan of getting, education around, so many components in our business that we can sharpen. I look at us like if we were plumbers, we carry a toolbox around with us with all kinds of plumbing tools in it. We can go to the store and buy a new shiny plumbing tool that gives us the ability to do something better or easier, or that we couldn't do before. It's the same in real estate as we develop our skill set around certain things. But from a book, I think every real estate agent should read. It's a negotiation book, Never Split the Difference, by Chris Voss. Love that book. Hostage negotiator, former FBI.
That one.
Yeah, so Chris is great. He actually spoke a couple years ago down at an NAR C5 commercial summit, and I got the chance to meet him long after I had read his book, and so it was pretty cool. I went on one of my sunrise walks I'm known for, and he was showing up at the hotel, so I actually got some one-on-one time with him, which was neat.
Nice.
But the book that I think the other couple of books, Atomic Habits is another great book. But again, these are things that, in life books and sale books, but the book that, so much of, for me, has been kind of a mental health journey in a lot of ways. and I see a lot of that tie into my business. I think the book, it's one of the smaller books I've read, but it's a book I've read the most frequent. I've actually gone back and read it multiple times, and I listened to it on Audible quite a bit, is a book called Unfuck Yourself, excuse the language.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So, and it's written by um, a Scot. So I love that Gary John Bishop. If you do Audible, he is the narrator of his audiobook, and it's like this Scot yelling in your ear. He's a therapist, and he's like yelling in your ear, like get out of your head and into your life kind of stuff. And it's really enlightening. And when I think of some of the lessons that go over in the book, it really, when you think of it through the lens of your real estate career, a lot of it applies, but really it's about life and your relationships, and accept, don't expect, things like lessons like that, be relentless in your drive. And when I say it's a small book, it's a weekend read if you really want to, have a page turner or need something on the beach, for a long day on the beach. But that's my favorite book, probably by far. And but I think it's had a big impact. And if you read that book and you like it, follow it up. He has a workbook that kind of comes in component with it that he released later called Do the Work. And it's a workbook on kind of working through some of your own drama, following the principles he teaches in the Unfuck Yourself book. And I did the workbook, and I thought, I said, what do you want to work on? So and you write it, and I said, I want to work on this. And I assumed, what the solution was going to be. And when I got to the end of it, my problem was this wasn't my problem. I had a totally other problem just by working through it. It was so eye-opening to me just by following his, clearly good at what he does and in his therapy world, which can be complex, for folks to untangle some stuff because you don't even realize that this is a big motivating factor in your life. So that was enlightening for me. I've probably bought that book for people the most of any book. As a matter of fact, I know I have.
Interesting. I like that.
Definitely good points. And like I said, everything doesn't have to be about real estate. You don't have to dive yourself fully into the real estate side of things and read all the books and learn and pick up tidbits.
Yeah. So I guess last question for you is this. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's getting ready to get into the industry and they are interviewing with brokerages, what would be one question that they should ask that hiring manager or managing broker?
How active are you going to be in my development and success? You personally.
That's a good question.
Because if you personally aren't going to be active in my development and success, I want to sit down with who you're going to relegate that to before I make a decision. I'm not saying it has to be the person. So a lot of times you're meeting a recruiter or a broker or a managing broker, and then they're going to kind of regulate you to a team or someone else who's going to be. I want to sit down because you're going to fail out of this business pretty quickly if you're not meant to be in this business. Usually in the first couple of years you're gone. We have quite a bit of shed our skin in this industry, and so that first 3, 6, 9, 12 months is so critical to my success. Doesn't mean I got to light the world on fire, but I better learn a whole lot. And so whoever you're talking to, you need to know, are they going to be the person who is going to be most responsible for your training and development and mentoring? And if it's not them, ask to meet with them. Because again, I'm not suggesting that this isn't a brokerage that you might be able to have success in. But if it's not me and it's going to be Heather, who works on my team, then it's my opinion that you better sit down with Heather and have a similar conversation with Heather and make sure that you have a vibe with Heather that gets you inspired and makes you feel comfortable about knowing. And if they're promising you, if they're spending time saying unlimited earning potential, flexible schedule, and you're hearing this stuff, pump the brakes. That's probably not real talk going on. That's probably taking the small percentile of people who will catapult into that in their career. But there's a lot of work in between there. So I want to be talking to the person most responsible for my success in the business.
So
if you're doing that, you got, then you can make an educated decision if you're at the right spot.
So I have to tell you, I've been doing this podcast since 2020. It started. I had a different co-host then, did it on my own for a little bit. Then obviously my bestie Heather, I was like, you're doing this with me. It was a hostage situation.
I had to ask what a podcast was.
But I have to tell you, out of the countless people that I have asked that question, you just answered it the best, and that was my favorite answer of all time.
I was about to say the same thing. I was about to say the same thing. Like, that's the most real answer
I'm blown away.
Have ever heard.
Yeah. Well, I try to be real and everything, and I don't want to. It's very important to me not to overpromise to somebody. I will pump my own brakes because I get excited about stuff, and I'm like, well, pump my brakes because I mean well. I mean, and I don't. And last thing, someone who's getting started in this career, I'll take this. I'll leave it with this. When I was going on before I was in brokerage and management, I was a sales agent, and so I would go on a listing appointment. Certainly have buyer agency contracts, seller agency contracts, but when I would go on an appointment, particularly with a seller, but even with a buyer, but it was more visual from a seller standpoint, and that seller, in my marketplace, the equity that, I worked in a working class area, still do in much of our business. The equity that some seller has in their home often represents, 90, sometimes 100% of their net worth. Like, they went their lives living paycheck to paycheck, surviving, maybe even making a decent living for themselves, paying for their kids' tuition, raising a family, doing the weekend down the shore, the week down the shore in Wildwood, and renting a house or doing whatever. That was the thing.
What that means, he doesn't get the depth of that.
End of the day, the savings account didn't have a lot of money. Maybe they had a pension or some sort of thing, but the equity in the home was their life savings to a large degree. And man, I always appreciated that when I went on the appointment, whether it was a $50,000 house or a $500,000 house. And a lot of times it was a $50,000 house. That 50,000 might have even meant more to those people than the 500 might have meant to those people. So I never had this look about, well, this is an important listing and this one's not as important, because the people it impacted, it was everything. It was everything to them. So when someone handed me the keys to their house to sell, it was such an ego rush to know that there's all these agents in my marketplace, and they're handing me the keys. And there's good agents in my market. I mean, there's certainly a couple knuckleheads in my marketplace, but there are good agents in my marketplace. Agents very worthy of hiring. Agents with wonderful resumes and track record. And they handed me the keys. They agreed to my fee agreement. They agreed to my term. And they don't even know how much money they got in their briefcase, in their savings account. They hope it's this much. We set the expectation that it might be that much together, but really they don't know, and how I'm going to handle it could influence what's left in that briefcase. Yep. Like, that's how I always approached it. So when I got into brokerage and management, and that served me very well on listing appointments and on buyer agency appointments, because I took the same approach with the buyer side of the transaction. But when I got into brokerage and management, I realized it's the same thing. If I'm sitting down with you and you're a new agent, and I'm thinking, man, this agent could go pretty much, it's an independent contractor world, lots of good brokerages in town. They could go work at any one of those brokerages. They're bright, they're aspirational, they seem to have a reasonable work ethic, they got the credentials they need to sit for the test, and they're choosing to affiliate with me and my firm. And what a rush. But also, just like it was with my seller or my buyer, what a responsibility that is. It's not just a rush, hey, I'm the greatest. It's about time people realize that. But what a responsibility that is, because, they're putting their trust in me. And knowing what the failure rate is in real estate, well, we better get it right. We better get it right quick. And as long as they keep up their end of the bargain, I better keep up my end of the bargain. It is a two-way street, so, but I want to make sure that I keep my side of that street clean and I set reasonable expectations, and that I deliver on what I promise, and then some. That's a big deal for me. So that's the keeping it real side.
Yeah.
And if you weren't going to be working with me directly as your coach, mentor, or trainer, not that we don't have other people on our team that contribute to those things,
Yeah.
but I'm the one who the buck stops with, in my opinion, for those things. And I want you to know that, because it's in my view, that's not always the case in our industry.
Yeah, you're right. Spot on. That's a really good, that is a really good interview question, because a lot of agents or people who want to become agents don't realize it's not the same as when you go for a job interview. You're not being interviewed. You are also doing the interviewing,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic, and that there is that kind of W-2 mindset, because that's what a lot of people who are coming into this industry, if they have work experience, if they're not just coming straight from school, in which case they probably still had hustle jobs or whatever while they were in school and did some work where they probably got a paycheck. Maybe it wasn't the biggest paycheck, but it was a paycheck. It's a different environment. So now it's a two-way street. Yeah, I have to put my best self on display for this brokerage to see that affiliating with me as an agent would be strong for them. They should want me on their team and desire to have me on this team. But two, it's like a power dynamic shift where it's the agent saying, hey, wait a minute, what's this brokerage got to offer me? And they all got this right stuff to say. You got to see past the right stuff to say. I hardly think that you're going on an appointment with a brokerage that doesn't tell you what you want to hear.
Correct.
The question is, are you hearing it from, and a lot of it's well-intentioned. I'm not trying to throw brokerages under the bus. Like, I think when people tell you that, they mean it for the most part. There might be some exceptions to that rule, but really the question is, who's responsible for the deliverable to me? And what can I expect? And if that's the case, I wasn't meant to work with everybody, and I'm okay with it. It was the same when I was a listing agent, as a regular listing agent, regular buyer's agent. I don't have to work with every buyer in town.
Right.
I don't have to work with every seller in town.
Right.
You have to sit, and I certainly don't have to work with every agent in town either, nor do they have to work with us. It's okay. And I can still wish them well, and I can still be happy for their success, and still carve out the slice of pie that is well suited for success with me, and I'm well suited for success with them.
Yeah.
Good
Well,
call.
Al, just exactly what we thought. Amazing. I'm so glad that you agreed to join us today. We couldn't have asked for a better time.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate both of you.
Well, everybody, that was another episode of Turning the Key to Real Estate. I am your host, Nicholas Feagley.
And Heather Petrone-Shook.
Don't forget to like, follow, share for more great content like this today.